Ah, hey, we're live.
How's it going?
I'm having a bad day here, man. A bad
Happy
day here,
Halloween,
man. I'm
sir.
having a
What,
bad hair
you
day,
having a bad
man.
hair day?
I am. It's just, it's taking me forever.
Forever to get the hair right just for today, just for the special. So Jim, and what's so special about today?
Halloween, man. The best holiday ever.
Yeah, the best, the absolute best. We have an actual interview for you guys today from our good friend Kevin J. Anderson. We talks a lot about a couple different horror novels that he's just in the process of releasing. One this week, Cosmic Horror. Another one, which is Comedic Horror. And speaking of comedic, Jim and I are here. We're having a fun time. Jim, this is my favorite holiday of all times. How about you?
And
Is Halloween one of your favorites?
the favorite, because back in the band days, my whole team is sick of me hearing my band stories, but that was like our biggest show of the year, like 18 years. We always had a
Oh,
big Halloween show, so
oh my
so
God,
fun.
that is fantastic. And I see there's
And I
there's a
can't
lot.
wear wigs during our corporate meetings, so
No, we can't.
they
We're
kind
not
of frown
allowed
upon
to.
that.
They banned them because I wanted to pretend I had hair for the longest time.
They banned them.
So Lexi had posted a comment. And let's see if we can find the comment. I hope everyone is ready for a king size special episode. And Guillaume answered, "What do you mean king size episode? I'm intrigued." Well, I'm glad you're intrigued. So it's Halloween, right?
Yes,
And
all day.
normally on Halloween, you go trick or treating, you go door to door, and maybe you get some nice candy, candy bar, right? Like this little mini Kit Kat here, or maybe the slightly bigger Kit Kat. Why are they upside down? I
Mm,
can't hold things properly. And then that's like a
you
regular
can.
episode because it's tasty, it's delicious, it's layered, it's all those things that we bring out at SPI. But this special Halloween episode is like when you go trick or treating, and you get a full size candy bar, you get a full size Kit Kat
Ooh,
and a special Halloween team one. So that's why um, I interviewed Kevin this past Sunday because right now Kevin's somewhere over the Atlantic on a plane on his way to a Comic Con in Europe. He'll talk a little bit about that in the interview. So I interviewed him
yep.
early. It was going to be a Halloween episode because of he's got a couple spooky books that just released, and also some interesting things that have happened to him as a writer in his journey through publishing. And I thought, okay, I was gonna pre-record it, but then we thought it'd be more fun to have the pre-recorded clips of Kevin and then allow us to interact with our awesome live audience as well.
Perfect. Great idea.
So, anything to dig into before I share or introduce the first clip of Mr. Kevin J. Anderson? And again, if you guys leave comments and stuff, we'll be able to react to them after the video clips play. The video clips are going to be anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes of that interview, and it does contain additional pop-ups and stuff because come on, this is a special. It's a special 2024 Halloween episode of Self-Publishing Insiders.
Yeah, Kevin's great. He's always fun to talk to, and his career spans decades and decades. He's always fun to talk to. I got to ask you though, Mark. This
Yeah.
question has been floating around in my mind forever. Do you horror authors ever scare yourselves? Are you ever writing something that's just so intriguing that you're like kind of looking over your shoulder on those
Yeah,
late
you know
nights
what?
where you're up late writing?
Yeah, a few times, and it's not the stuff I write; it's the stuff I research when I'm writing. So when I've written some true ghost
Mm,
story books, I've actually, while I'm putting the chapter together, I'm like, that's really creepy. One of the most
you're getting the
recent ones, a
heebie-jeebies.
place here in Waterloo, is a custodian talking about walking in the halls of this haunted school at Galt Collegiate here in Cambridge,
Yep.
Ontario, right next door to where I am, and talks about walking in the hallway at night and the light coming behind him, and as a shadow grows along the floor, as you know, you walk between lights, and then he sees a
Yep.
second shadow growing right beside his, but he turns and there's no one there, and I'm like, okay, that kind of freaks me out. So
Yep. That's a little freaky.
yeah, so and of course, I love that Lexi is someone who doesn't normally write horror thrillers. I'm curious about this conversation, so yeah, let's dig into it. Oh, Diaz, happy Halloween! Thanks for
Happy
joining us.
Halloween, everybody.
All
I
right,
just
let's.
want to remind everybody that this is a very serious conversation.
It's
So,
very serious.
very serious.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And I still love your hair, Jim. All right, let's roll this first clip. So this
Thanks.
first clip is talking to Kevin about his new cosmic horror novel, Nether Station, that was just released earlier this week, just in time for Halloween, my friends. And here's Kevin.
Okay.
Hey, Kevin, welcome back to Self-Publishing Insiders with Drafted Digital.
Is that where I am? Oh no!
Yeah. How did we get here on
How did
October
we get? I didn't know
31st?
what I was.
How eerie, how spooky.
Somebody said I got a free trip to the Bahamas if I signed up for this. Well, it's Halloween, so what could be scarier than be on a podcast with Mark Lefebvre? So
Yeah, exactly. And maybe we go, oh my God, what happened to our hair?
it's turned all white. Well, who knows? Good to be here again. I've been on a few times, including one memorable time when some guy pulled the phone out of your hand while we were recording this podcast. Anyway,
That was
we won't go
live
into
from
that. That's too
Superstars.
scary.
Yeah, that was fun stuff. But I think we want to start off with some scary horror. So, I mean, you've written all the speculative genres, right? Epic fantasy, science fiction, horror, all kinds of everything
Lots
in
of
between.
mysteries and high fantasy and urban fantasy and
All the things.
like psychological horror and monster horror, and now I got cosmic horror and Lovecraftian science fiction and stuff.
I know. So let's dig into the cosmic horror. So just a couple days ago, you just launched a new book from Blackstone Audio, right? And I think maybe we're gonna play the trailer right now so we can kind of that's our introduction to it. All right, cool. I was going to say that looks amazing, but I'm halfway through the book already, so I know it's amazing. And oh boy, it just got really
And
tense.
he's just getting to the good part too. I checked that out.
Okay, so Nether Station. Let's talk a little bit about that novel.
So, I mean, the trailer kind of gave you a real feel. So I love like Alien, Event Horizon, Pitch Black, like science fiction horror stuff.
Right.
And just think of that scene in the first Alien movie when they get on the nasty planet and they find the wrecked spaceship, and there's this huge tomb of this dead alien in there that's got his chest burst open. And that just raises so many questions to me, like how creepy is this and how scary, and it raises so many questions. And I grew up on Star Trek. I wanted to join Starfleet and to seek out new life forms and new civilizations and go, because space is full of wonders and space is full of like interesting places and amazing astronomy things. But if you think about it, out there, it is as empty as it can be. It is as black and vacant void and cold, and space can be scary as hell. And I don't understand why there aren't more of these scary science fiction things. I mean, there is a cosmic horror genre, which is what I'm reading in, but I can't rattle off 100 instant classics like this. And I always loved H.P. Lovecraft. I think At the Mountains of Madness is like one of the most scariest masterpieces of horror ever. And Weird Tales magazine teamed up with Blackstone Publishing, and they have a line called Weird Tales Presents. Weird Tales was always my bucket list. I mean, that was H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard and the cosmic horror and everything else. And they asked me if I wanted to write a book for their Weird Tales Presents line. And I mean, the field was open. What do you want to do? And I could have written like high epic, like sword and sorcery fantasy or something like that. But I really kind of got hooked on this dark science fiction that space can be scary. And so the opening line is 5 years later, the signal came back. And so the whole setup. So they discover that there's a wormhole up on the far darkest, farthest edge of the solar system, way up on the edge of the comet cloud. And that's where the sun is just this little tiny pinprick, and you are far away from everything. And wormholes don't shine. I mean, they're just a hole. So you don't like look and find them. It has a lot of astronomy involved in order to see that it's there. So they find this anomaly up there, and the space agencies they send up a probe, and it gets some readings, and it goes into the wormhole, and nothing. So then my book starts. 5 years later, the signal came back.
Yeah.
So the wormhole pops out in Alpha Centauri. So this probe goes through, and it says, like Horton Hears a Who, we are here, we are here. But it takes 5 years for that signal to get back to Earth.
Right.
All that is like astrophysics background, and you don't need to know too much of it. But the thing is, here we have proof that this is like a shortcut to Alpha Centauri.
Right.
So maybe cool. You might want to go up there. And so we have an entrepreneur who kind of finances his own expedition because he wants to build a Grand Central Station up there and use it to build his empire. And he brings his crew of people to investigate it. And it's your typical batch of oddball people who are willing to go away from home for 5 years at a time. And so they get up there, and so it could be a shortcut, or it could be like the entrance to a labyrinth that's imprisoning these dark elder gods that have been locked up there forever. And we're just poking them in the eye right now. So there's some really scary stuff in here, some really cool sense of wonder. I mean, you just implied it. I think it's on the back cover. So it's a bit of a spoiler, but it's just so intriguing that they're up in the middle of nowhere on the edge of space where nobody has ever been. And they do this expedition to a nearby comet because they want to get some of the, you harvest the ice so you can have water and oxygen and everything. And they get to this comet, and carved into the ice in this comet, there's this huge temple to like Cthulhu. I mean, this huge elder god there carved on a comet at the edge of the solar system. And if that doesn't get you intrigued, I don't know what will. So,
oh my God, yeah. I mean, and it's just nonstop action up to that point. Even prior to that, when something splats against the windows,
the windshield,
the portholes, and there's these weird creatures. And it was so funny. I just got back from Victoria, BC, and I don't spend a lot of time near the ocean. And so when we were walking out on the breakwater there's these big, giant, ugly, scary tentacles that basically sea kelp. And when you see them washed up and stuff, they look alien. And I keep thinking, it's like, there's so much alien stuff on Earth that we don't know about, or that the average person has never seen. And then you've taken it to this whole other extreme because it's even more alien what hits them. and again, we still don't know. There's weird stuff happens when they retrieve one of those bodies and start dissecting it. And again, I don't know what happened, because you've got the scene where the dissection happens and then something else happens, and we haven't gotten back to that yet. And I was thinking, oh boy.
Well, I think this is, I've written 190 books, I think, if my wife's count is correct, because she keeps track of these things. But this is my scariest one. This is my most suspenseful thing. And
wow.
You're just to the part where the shit's going to hit the fan. So, I mean, it should be creepy and interesting and character building and a lot of, I mean, you mentioned to me just before we started recording that I did this twist you didn't expect, like in chapter 4. So like right away, like, wait, you can't do that. And
yeah, how dare you do this?
But you'll see. And
wow.
It shocked me. It shocked me. Okay, I can't really see the comments, so I have to remove that. Look at you.
Well,
You going to a concert tonight?
I am the concert. Yeah, I'm going to a concert, man. Of course.
Awesome. Oh man, I love what you did with your hair during that last clip.
Yeah, the color was running out, so I just dyed it all black this time. But did Kevin J. Anderson just say he's written like 190 books?
Yeah. I thought you said, did he just say a word that started with S and ended in T and H and an I in it?
I was trying not to bring attention to that.
Oh, I just realized, I'm like, oh, I could have blooped that out. But I think that's used on television today, on primetime television. So I think we're safe with all the censorship there, right? It's not like he had a nip slip or anything. you know.
Right. He didn't have any
Live,
costume
live
malfunctions, unlike us back here.
TV. So, yes, what happened to you two? Well, we're celebrating Halloween, and I want to invite you guys watching this live to share in the comments some of your favorite things about Halloween.
Yeah,
Maybe
your
it's
favorite
favorite Halloween
costume,
candy, different things about Halloween. Just let us know. I think that would
the
be so
best
much
costume
fun.
you ever wore, that sort
Yeah,
of thing. Let
yeah,
us
yeah.
know.
Cool, awesome. And there was another comment here because I think this is so fitting for today's episode. Guillaume says, I wrote an erotic comedy based on ghosts. It's about a group of female adult film stars who stay at a mansion haunted by ghosts. You know where this is going. Yeah, we know where that's going, don't we?
We do. We do.
Awesome, awesome. And if you've written some scary things or you've published some frightful books or whatever on the theme, come on, share in the comments. Let us know about them as well, because we're here to just kind of hang out and celebrate together, right?
Right. I was just thinking about from Kevin J. Anderson's comments how much research goes into some of his books. You can
Yeah,
just tell as he's sort of talking through this, um, just like historical fiction writers have, they get into the research, and it takes
yeah,
them. They say that it takes them forever just to finish their books because they're so involved in digging
right,
down in that
right.
research. And I would bet you those, space fiction too.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, even talking about astronomy and talking about the stuff. I mean, even just reading the book. I mean, that's what scares me about writing actual science fiction is all the stuff that goes like physics and things that I don't really understand.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
And hey, Beth, thanks for saying hi. Good to have you here for the live show. Should we jump
Hey,
into
Beth.
the next with Kevin from the interview?
Let's.
All right, cool. So this is where he talks a little bit more about Nether Station. And Nether Station, I'm so excited. I was going to be reading it, but I couldn't read the pages with my skull mask on. I got a signed advanced reader copy. So this is known as an ARC in the business. Comes from the publisher, came from Blackstone Publishing, and it's an original early edition that I got. And they send this out, just so you guys know about the book industry. They send out stuff like this to reviewers and librarians and booksellers and people like that. So they can read it ahead of time and then order in tons of copies of the book. And
Yep.
I got it actually from Kevin because we're friends and he knows I love horror. And so I was like, ooh, I can't wait till October to read it. I should have read it earlier, but I've got this now. But anyways, he talks about a little bit more about Nether Station. He talks about dictation, one of the ways he writes, and a really scary thing that happened to him on a mountain. See, it's horror, Halloween themed. And then I can't read this is the horror of not being able to read your own writing. Oh, and then an author.
Gonna borrow my reading glasses? You need my,
Yeah,
you need my
can you
glasses?
pass them over? Yeah.
Yeah.
An author, the importance of authors connecting directly with their fans as well. So let me bring that next clip up. If I can find the clip. There's a clip somewhere here, I think. There it is. It's labeled number 2. Here we go.
But
Right.
I love how it all came together. I love these characters, and this is big ideas, and this is the coolest stuff. So before reading this, I went back and I reread all of H.P. Lovecraft, like
Wow.
everything.
Okay.
And I think At the Mountains of Madness it's kind of like the precursor to The Thing, and all those scary, isolated, we're lost in Antarctica and things are going bad.
Yeah.
And then some of the the Shadow Out of Time, The Color Out of Space, these are just groundbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy wrote purple prose that extended into the ultraviolet, but it is really scary stuff. And unlike anything before, and I just love being able to dabble into that universe. And so Nether Station ends on, let's say Luke, I am your father is sort of like a minor cliffhanger. This is a really big cliffhanger.
Oh, really?
And I'm writing the other half of it. It's a 2-part. It's not like an endless series. It's just part 1 and part 2.
Okay.
Nether Vortex, which I'm writing right now, and it should come out literally a year after Nether Station, so next November.
October, November. And you just you dictate when you write. So you just, as you're healing from an injury, you got your dictaphone there. You
Right there.
just got back from writing a chapter, right? You went for a hike in Colorado somewhere.
Like literally before we recorded this. So so 12 weeks ago, I go out hiking and mountain climbing and everything. And for the first time ever, I fell on a mountain pass and I broke my ankle in the pouring rain on a muddy slope among rocks and roots, and I slid down into this creek bed as it was rushing with water because of the downpour. So I was all like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. I was like completely covered in mud, and my ankle was broken, and I was a mile away from my car, so I had to hobble on one foot back to my car. And so I do these things to my characters and not to myself, would be my preference.
Yeah, of
So the
course.
upshot is I've had a broken ankle for now. It's 12 weeks. So I spent 8 weeks in a Darth Vader boot, unable to do like more than walk to the driveway and back. I mean, just clomping around. But
Yeah.
now I've graduated. I'm in an ankle brace and I can walk. Yesterday I did a 4 mile hike and I've been up to 5 miles back up. So I'm back in the swing of it. But the real crimp in my style here was for those 8 weeks, I could not walk and dictate, which is how I write. So I was writing the sequel to Nether Station, and I had to sit on the back porch and try to get into this
Oh,
huge. And I,
were you dictating while looking at, because you live in a beautiful area where you can
yeah,
look out at
I was
nature.
sitting out looking at the mountains and just dictating, but it's still just not the same. There's a component you have to move and walk while you're doing things.
Yeah.
And just a quick offhand plug, I have a book called On Being a Dictator about the whole process of writing by dictation, and that's written with Martin L. Shoemaker and Greg Bose, who are also two strict dictators. And anyway, I dictated the chapter this morning. I went out, I walked 2 miles,
Yeah.
just kind of around the bike paths and stuff, and I dictated my chapter, and I came in and I downloaded the audio file, and right at this very moment, my AI is transcribing it, not writing it, is taking the word for word off of the
Yeah.
dictation, and it is
Right.
transcribing it. And so by the time we're done with this podcast, it will probably be done and ready for me to format. And I'm a few chapters behind, but I try to keep up editing as I'm writing because
Right.
it's all fresh in my head. If you look at it 6 weeks later, you can go like, I don't know what I was trying to say here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it's fresh from this morning.
Right.
Wow. All right. So you've got so this is with Blackstone Audio, Weird Tales Presents,
Well,
which is one
Blackstone
of their,
Publishing. So
yeah.
they have the audio version, which is read by Scott Brick, who is
Yeah.
audio award-winning, good friend of mine for a long time. He's narrated all my Dune books, and I asked for him, and Blackstone just said, "Yeah, we'd love Scott." So Scott does the audio. The ebook is available. It's going to also be out in hardcover. Um, Available wherever books are sold. But
Awesome.
and we'll talk about this a little bit later on. But I have my own online store, and it's wordfireshop.com, and you can get signed hardcovers direct from me. And that'll be another topic for this podcast about how authors, if you just buy direct from the authors, you cut out the middleman, and you get me a little bit more profit rather than Jeff Bezos a little bit more profit. So. And
And what I like
I buy my books just through
Yep.
Ingram, just like a bookstore. So the
Right.
publisher, Blackstone, they get their
Yep.
everything they're supposed to be, but it's the author goes to the reader rather than the reader goes to Amazon, who goes to Ingram, who goes
Right.
to the publisher, and then
I
everybody gets
like that because whether it's a Wordfire Press, which is the Rebecca and yourself, that's your company, or Blackstone Audio, or one of the major publishers, because you are publishing with so many different publishers, those signed copies you're acquiring like a bookstore, but you're also making them available where you can have a direct relationship with the reader.
I mean, that is kind of how the industry has really changed. That there is, I'm kind of a control freak. I want to know what's going on, and if something fails spectacularly, I want to be the one to make it fail spectacularly rather than.
Right.
But I kind of like to do all the different pieces of it, and I like to have the direct contact with the readers and the fans. And in fact, this morning I spent an hour on a Zoom call with my Patreon backers because that's one of their things that they get if they sign up as one of my Patreon supporters, that every month I do a Zoom call where they can just hang out and chat and ask questions and whatever they want. So all of this is a piece of the puzzle about the author direct to their readers and fans.
Yeah.
In old traditional publishing, I wrote all these Star Wars books through Bantam Books. And I would get fan mail that Bantam would forward to me, but there was almost never any direct interaction between me and the Star Wars fan.
Mhm.
Except I often go to Comic Cons and in-person like conventions and things. So
Yeah.
I did meet it. But that throughout my career, that has always been an important component that I want it to be me and my backstage club, my group of people that and if you have like 1,000 fans that really love your stuff and will directly buy it from you, that is as important as 10,000 or 100,000 fans that buy them on Amazon or 7-Eleven or something like that, because
Right,
there are
right.
so many layers of middle people,
Middle
so many layers in between and everybody takes a cut.
Yeah, so
And
many layers of elder gods in between. So,
yes,
We're back.
We're back.
I'm
And
having weird tech issues, so I couldn't see anything. I wonder if my hair was getting in my face.
that might have been your tech issue, the hair in front of the eyes.
Oh, that's what. Okay, I can't. Yeah, it's been so long since I've had to deal with this, so I'm gonna. But your hair, you're looking pretty 80s, dude.
Yeah, I'm feeling it now, man.
Yeah,
I
I want to
have it.
listen to.
I don't.
I want to listen to a rock ballad when I see you dressed like that.
Yeah, okay. Hey, can we just underscore a point that Kevin just made
Yeah.
about the importance of indies having that direct connection with their readers, and how he didn't say this specifically, but how that is like the holy grail of the indie experience, that ability to have that one-on-one connection with your readers that
Oh
even
yeah.
traditionally published authors they don't quite have that, but all of you out there do. So nurture that relationship with your readers. That's golden to you.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't control when somebody purchases something off a different website, and how do you let people know you have a new book out or anything like that?
Right.
We offer some free tools for that, right? We have bookstoread.com. People can follow you and then be notified when you have a new book. That's one of the
Right.
ways that we kind of try to give you some of those tools. Of course, the author email may be another way that
Author
people can
email.
directly reach out to your readers and let them know how awesome you are. Your new
Yep.
books, any specials you have going on. So,
That's
uh,
right. And your readers want to hear from you. Don't feel like you're bugging them. They
oh
actually
yeah.
want to hear from you.
Very, very sure. I think they do. They want to connect with people. And of course, people are commenting. Lexi says Jim's going through a hair journey. Was that a play on words? Lexi.
Don't
Hume
stop
says,
believing, Lexi. Just don't stop believing, Lexi.
yeah, new version of the rock band Kiss, right? You're not in Detroit, but are you gonna Rock City where you are today? No?
Of course. Every day is
Okay.
Rock City.
All right. And Beth says, if Mark wore a wig, he would be unrecognizable. Oh my God, I can sneak around and people wouldn't know I was there. So
They would
thanks, Beth.
never
That's a
know.
great idea.
They would never know.
All the wigs, all the time. And this comment from Layla, of course, says, I've been neglecting my follower Discord. Got to give them some love and attention. Yes, Layla, it's Halloween. Give them a treat. Get in there and share something fun with them, because they're there because they love your books and they want to connect with you. I think that's so important.
That's really important. I want to kind of comment on Layla's comment as well. Back in my band days, we used to interact with our fans all the time on social networks. And then when we started, there was this one record in particular where we started writing. We got very, very involved with the record. We got very involved with the recording of it. And so we just kind of went dark on social media, because we figured, our fans they'll understand. They'll understand how hard we're working. Don't make that mistake. No one's working that hard. Do not go dark on your fans. Take it from me. Always kind of keep them in the loop, even if it's just like a couple of posts a day on the socials. Just interact with them. Let them know what's going on. If you're working really, really hard and you're going through a lot of stress, let them know. Let them know about that human experience.
Oh, for sure. I even know on my own personal podcast that I release, I'm pretty open about the stuff I go through, like the imposter syndrome that I face while I'm standing in a bookstore and nobody wants to talk to me. All right, so all those
I
things
would be there for.
we all suffer through that self-doubt all the time as writers, and I think that helps the people who are listening go, yeah, I feel that way sometimes too.
Yeah.
So, All right. So we're going to move on in the interviews with Kevin. So we talked about the cosmic horror and the Lovecraft in space kind of stuff. Now we're going to get into something a little bit more my cup of tea. And I do love horror in all its guises, but my cup of tea is humor. I love humor. I love horror. I love when you can combine them. And Kevin's going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite series that he has written that I adore, and my wife Liz absolutely loves as well. And she's normally not a spec fic reader, but let's run that clip.
Cool.
I want to move a little bit from cosmic scary horror to humorous horror, because you do write now multiple genres, but it also relates to this direct relationship with your fans, because the property that we're about to talk about, the Dan Shamble Zombie PI property, was initially with, is it Kensington? It was one of the big publishers as a mass market release.
Well, and so it has been my failing for a long time that I do write all over the place, that you can't just pigeonhole, oh, that's a Kevin J. Anderson novel, because it is a blank.
Yeah.
I mean, I've written epic fantasy, I've written horror, I've written mysteries, I've written, I guess I'm best known for like space opera and big science fiction. And my wife and I were watching, we always watch the Walking Dead, and we had just watched World War Z. And it was one of those episodes of The Walking Dead where, oh God, another one of our characters just got eaten and I liked that person.
Yeah.
and I had this idea that, why do these zombie apocalypse things always have to be so grim and so depressing and so gory? And which I like them, but you know, the 10,000th time one of your favorite characters gets munched, it's just like, you know, I decided it was time for Spaceballs.
Yes.
and I started thinking about this zombie detective, that he's back from the dead and back on the case. And I started building up this world where, through this series of cosmic astrological events, which are silly when you lay them out, that all the monsters have returned. The zombies, vampires, ghosts, mummies,
right,
goblins, everything. They're all back. And
you called it the Big Uneasy, right?
The Big Uneasy was this cosmic event that like just changed all the rules, and everybody came back. And of course, at first, everyone's freaked out because there's monsters all of a sudden everywhere. But after things settle down, you know, the monsters just kind of want to live their unlives like everybody else, and so they've all settled down into what I call the unnatural quarter, and you know, they just do their thing, and so my guy Dan Shambo. He's a private investigator, and you know, werewolves get divorced too, and there are missing persons, and somebody has lawsuits against the neighbor for having their hedge line wrong. So he's an investigator, doing regular PI stuff, and then he gets murdered on a case. But because in this world zombies exist, he comes back and he keeps solving cases, and he's got a ghost girlfriend, and his best human friend is a politically incorrect cop who tells bad jokes, but he finds that if you tell monster jokes instead of ethnic jokes, you can get away with them.
Yeah.
And so he does those.
And he's the one who nicknamed Dan Shambo Dan Shamble, right?
Yeah, Shamble.
Yeah.
And he's got a bleeding heart human lawyer for a partner, and she wants to have justice for monsters, because all sorts of legal implications open up. Like, so if you're dead and then you come back as a zombie, what do your heirs do with your stuff? Can you get your stuff back? Or well, no, sorry, you already had the estate sale. But that was my dresser. I wanted my dresser. Anyway, so it is fun. It is like the Addams Family meets the Naked Gun. It is full of stupid dad jokes. It's full of really snarky, ridiculous things, and I loved it. It was hilarious. Everybody who read it just laughed. And then but I wrote this sort of on my own. I was like, I really want to do this. I wrote it on spec, and I finished it, and I sent it to my agent, who had just sold like 3 more Dune books to Tor, and I had this big epic fantasy. And the agent said, well, what is this? You can't write humorous fantasy. No, he said, this is hilarious, but what is this? You can't write humorous fantasy. And I said, well, didn't you just say it was hilarious? Yeah, I loved it, but you can't write this. And I said, well, I just did. And we like none of my regular publishers wanted it because they said, well, Kevin can't write humorous horror. That's not what he writes.
Yeah.
And I said, well, but I just did, and I really liked it. And so we finally ended up sending it to Kensington, who published the first few books. Um, but at that time I was really getting involved in indie publishing, forming Wordfire Press, and seeing the opportunities out there that, hey, if you do like rapid release, you can do these things and you can build on it. And I wrote I just wrote a Dan Shamble short story called Stakeout at the Vampire Circus. And I said, I have this, I'm going to do an ebook of it. I'm just going to give away the story right before the book comes out. So everybody reads a Dan Shamble story, then they want to go and buy the book. Well, I adored my editor over in Kensington, but they still had a very old school mindset.
Right.
And I said, well, I've got this short story I'm going to upload. And they were very insistent. No, they wanted to upload the story and go through them. And I went, well, okay. And then they said, but we'll bring it out before book 2 because we can't possibly produce the e-story of this in less than 9 months. I went, but I'll do it tomorrow. What are you talking about? And so we really kind of butted heads on that, but they were insistent and they were my publisher and they wanted the story, so I let them take it. And they did. They brought out the story as a promo before book 2, but then I wanted these books out like every 6 months or something. And instead they brought them out every year and a half. And it was frustrating because these are like popcorn. You read one, you want to read the next one. And so they did the first 3, and I just didn't see eye to eye with how they produced them.
Right.
For instance, so it was a trade paperback, and here's my version. I've got the rights back. We're doing so it's a trade paperback. This is $15-16, something like that. So they were selling the paperback for $15, and they were selling the ebook for $15. And I went, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then after book 3, they wanted to cancel the series because the ebook sales were so bad. And I kind of went, well,
I wonder why.
But I was hurt because so I went to all of my urban fantasy friends because I believed in this series. I love Dan Shamble. This was like I love writing these. My wife even said, I like it when you write Dan Shamble because you're always in a good mood. And it comes through. I'm writing these heartwarming, fun, hilarious things. So then they wanted to cancel the series after book 3. So I went to all of my urban fantasy friends, huge, big, best-selling urban fantasy writers: Jim Butcher, Sherilyn Kenyon, L.A. Banks, Kelly Armstrong, who else? Patricia Briggs, all these like huge bestsellers. And I said, so you've got these massively best-selling series. How long did it take for your series to take off? And not a one of them said it took off before book 5.
Oh, wow.
And so I go back to Kensington and I said, well, you can't give up on book 3. We're going to build this and we're going to turn Dan Shamble into like Harry Dresden or something because they're funny, they're fast, but you got to stick by it until it comes up. And I really, really twisted their arm to buy one more, and they grudgingly did it. They cut my advance in half, so it was like what I was making when I was a brand new writer. And then they brought it out again a year and a half after the previous one. And like within a month, they said, see, the sales aren't good. And they just weren't interested anymore.
Right.
And I was very frustrated. And then, so I published at Wordfire. I had always written Dan Shamble short stories. Like every time an anthology wanted something for me, I'd figure out a way to do a Dan Shamble story.
Yeah.
I had like 8 or 9 Dan Shamble stories. Well, Kensington had published the novels, and I went, well, you know what? I'm going to just publish through Wordfire. It's called Working Stiff, the first collection of Dan Shamble stories. And we brought that out, and, it did reasonably well. And then I kept thinking, and I kept wanting to do another one. And so I wrote a new Dan Shamble novel, which was called Tastes Like Chicken. That was book 6 in the series. But it was me releasing it at Wordfire. and I didn't have the other ones that Kensington had published, and it had a different cover because I don't own the cover rights. And it did okay, but remember, I'm writing Dune books and New York Times bestseller stuff and getting big advances. And much as I love the Dan Shamble stuff, it just it wasn't on par with the other things I could do, and it was gonna be a labor of love no matter what.
Hey, that's what it's all about for me. Is it's a game of love, right? Because there's no guarantee that any of the books you write are going to be successful. So why not enjoy yourself while you're writing them, right?
You know, he brought up three things I just wanted to touch upon there, and it had to do with publishing timing and pricing.
Yeah.
So he wanted to get his series books out every 6 months and just like
Yeah.
bang, 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 because to the
Yeah.
readers, it's like popcorn. And they finish that next book, they want
Or
that.
Halloween candy. Or Halloween
They
candy.
want, or Halloween candy. They want that next chewy morsel immediately to satisfy that craving. But the publishers, they do a lot of work, but they were saying, no, sorry, we can't get this out every 6 months. We're going to do it every 18 months. And then he was saying that the next thing that really drove him nuts was that they were pricing the paperbacks at $15, but also pricing the ebooks at $15. And then they were wondering why the ebooks weren't selling.
Yeah.
So that's one of your advantages out there. If you're watching this podcast, is you have this ability, you have so much control over your authors' careers. You can price your books to satisfy your readers. You can price those ebooks down really, really low if you wanted to create more awareness. And then the next thing, just real quickly, Mark, that he mentioned that I wanted to underscore was that, having a certain number of books. We've heard this time and time again about how newer authors, if you're getting ready to publish that first book, rather than pulling the trigger, maybe you want to wait until you've got 3 to even 5 books ready in your pipeline. Because the best and the worst thing that can happen is you get that first book out there and it performs really well. It gains that traction and your readers will start to clamor for that next book, but then there's nothing else to give them once they're done. So if you can kind of wait and hold off until you've got a couple of books ready to go, that's the advice I would give.
Yeah, I mean, I'll see that happen as well with people who go into Kindle Unlimited. They publish wide to all the platforms, Apple and Barnes & Noble and Kobo and the other places. And then readers start to read their series on those other platforms. And then they're like, yeah, I'm just going to go all in on Amazon and take them down everywhere else. And so frustrating for customers who are like, I'm in book 3 and where'd book 4 go? Where's book 5? I can't read them anymore. You suddenly, it's a similar thing to what traditional publishers do, right? Yeah. Where they just don't give
got hair in my mouth. Sorry.
See, I'm not used to that very much anymore. So comment from Lexi here is that traditional publishers can have a real issue selling books they don't view as marketable. Remember, they talked about, but you don't write that. Kevin Anderson doesn't write funny stuff. He writes epic fantasy and sci-fi and stuff. And then, of course, some wonderful comments earlier I want to pop up as well. Guillaume says, I love Spaceballs, because Kevin talked about this is like the Spaceballs version of the zombies. And, of course, has written an erotic comedy version of it and sold 2 copies of that. See? So, but I bet you had fun writing it, and that is the most important thing, I think.
That's right.
And then Lexi says, Shaun of the Dead shall forever be my standard for horror comedy. But I have a special surprise, a special extra Halloween treat for you guys. You ready, Jim?
I'm ready.
I actually have not written erotic comedy, but I have written romantic comedy. And a good friend of mine from the U.S. is visiting because she wanted to hang out here with Liz and I on Halloween. And Julie, welcome to the stage. Welcome. This is Julie Strauss.
Way. Hey, Julie.
Yeah. Julie, a romance author. This is one of her Chefs in Love series of books, Prosecco Heart, which it opens up. It is a riot. She is a hilarious author. I love her stuff. So when I was struggling with my Canadian Werewolf series and I wanted to do a romantic comedy backstory about Gail and Michael, Julie stepped in and saved my skin by working on Lover's Moon with me. And Julie, can we talk about the horror of what it was like? Because I am a serial procrastinator, and you are very organized.
And I am a serial planner.
Yeah. So how
every day was Halloween. Every day of the writing experience.
But you survived.
Yeah. You know what? We worked really well together. I thought like our traits complemented each other.
Yeah.
Because you got me to be more spontaneous, and I got you to focus a little bit.
A little bit.
It's that yin and yang. It's that yin and yang. That's how it goes.
And it worked well. So it was so fun. I was writing outside of my element, where we actually planned out the entire novel chapter by chapter, because we had the trade-off. I wrote a chapter, she wrote a chapter. From I did Michael's point of view, she did Gail's. You had so much fun that I talked her into writing the next one, which was actually action adventure back to urban fantasy, Hex in the City, where I forced her to write outside of her romance, because there's very little romance in that one.
Yeah,
right?
Wow, look at those cover images. Wow.
Yeah, one did some great work on our covers. But,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So. And then, of course, the horror as well is without any forewarning. I'm like, hey, Julie, wouldn't it be cool if I just pulled you onto the show that we're doing live? Since she just delivered lunch here for me. So I thought,
haven't you learned your lesson yet, Julie?
I have not. And I just want you all to know, I've been watching Mark's lives for years now. And I finally get to stand behind the counter. And sure enough, there's candy. I knew it. I always knew it. There's so much candy back here, y'all.
Living the dream, Julie.
I'm stealing all of it.
Of course, yes. Well, the kids get one, we get one. The kids get one, we get. That's how it works here in this house.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Julie, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for popping in, Julie.
So many special treats, so many things going on, and so much genre blending this episode, as Layla just commented. Thank you. And of course, Lexi says welcome to Julie as well. So that's really awesome. Oh, wow. I'm getting all confused and lost and discombobulated. And it's not just because of the costume changes. We have more Dan Shamble.
We do.
More Dan Shamble discussions coming up. And so Kevin and I now talk a little bit about, he talked about his frustration with the traditional publisher and then just not getting it. And now we're going to migrate into what happens when Kevin gets his rights back from the publisher, and how that kind of led to new tools that authors can actually use, including, have you heard of Kickstarter?
I have.
Oh, cool. Then maybe this will be a little bit more about what Kevin is up to again this week.
And so as time goes by, I eventually got the rights back from Kensington. So I got all the first 4 books, and I got new covers, and we'll put up the images, but I just want to show right. I had a cover design service. We redesigned the whole thing with this really cool kind of a white look with a splotch in the middle with the great illustration. That's a Ukrainian cover design company. They're great. And so we reissued the first books, plus Working Stiff, plus Tastes Like Chicken. And by this point, I had enough to do a second story collection. So we did that one. But so we just put them up as Wordfire, and I was selling them, and they were doing okay. And people kept writing, when are you going to do another Dan Shamble book? But the first one, it was fine. It just wasn't enough to make me not write a Dune book that time in order to do this.
Yeah.
But people kept asking for the next Dan Shamble book. And finally, a friend of mine said, well, why don't you just run a Kickstarter? If the fans want it, just run a Kickstarter. And I'd never done one before. I didn't really know a lot about Kickstarters. And I just said, well, isn't a Kickstarter for like poor authors that can't afford anything and they just want people to give them money? And oh boy, did I get a lecture that is not what a Kickstarter is at all. This is a chance for the fans to get like the Insiders Club, the Backstage Club, that they get to help support their favorite author. They get to buy the books before anybody else.
Yeah.
They can get special editions, get everything. And so I said, all right, well, if people want this, I'll run a Kickstarter, and if it funds, I will write a brand new Dan Shamble novel. And so first Kickstarter ever, I put it up there, and boom, it made 3 times what Kensington had ever paid me for any of the books. And I went, oh, okay.
Direct from fans who want it.
So it's almost like if you're in a stock market, it's like buying futures in wheat. You're buying futures in Dan Shamble. You pay me for the book, and then I write it, and then I give it to you as soon as I'm done.
Right.
Well, I don't think people like to wait, so I always kind of rig the system. So I write the whole book before I even do a Kickstarter, so that it's done within a month of when the Kickstarter is over.
Yeah.
And so I did that one, and then I had another fantasy series I really loved that I wanted to write a sequel to, but the original publisher didn't really want a sequel. And so I got the rights back, and the Dragon Business was the first one, and I wanted a sequel. We ran a Kickstarter. Again, boom, 3 times what the other publisher had ever paid. So I thought, okay, I like this. And then I did another Dan Shamble book called Bats in the Belfry. So that was book number 9 in the series. Ran a Kickstarter for that. Again, nice, successful Kickstarter. So obviously this is the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
All of this is a very long lead up to the fact that we just launched this year's Dan Shamble Kickstarter.
Ooh.
But I wanted it to be bigger than ever before, not just a new Dan Shamble novel. It is a new Dan Shamble novel called Horn Dogs, about unicorns and their pets. And it's the secret society of unicorns, and about an enchanted prince who just wants to be turned back into a frog, and is about a fairy godmother who has a very lucrative glass slipper business on the Home Shopping Channel. It's about a pair of lagoon creatures that just want to do a nice aquatic park in the unnatural quarter. So that's Horn Dogs, and that's all done. And then by now I have enough Dan Shamble stories for another collection. So we'll have a new collection called Stiffs and Stones, because Dan Shamble is a stiff detective and he's got stones. So we have a new novel and a new collection, but I really wanted to make this bigger than ever before. So with Catalyst Games, we have a Dan Shamble combat card game that we're putting together. And because the cover art for Horn Dogs, which you're either showing or going to show, it's just a gorgeous painting of Dan Shamble with his gun drawn, sort of in a Mexican standoff with a unicorn. So we've got a jigsaw puzzle for the artwork, because Dan Shamble's good at solving puzzles. He's a detective. So
Perfect. Yes.
So anyway, that launched, and again, I want to be proof of concept that this is the way to do it, that I want to do the Dan Shamble stuff myself. I want to release my pace and direct to the fans. And so, I mean, you'll put the link up, but just go to Kickstarter.com and search for Kevin J. Anderson, and it should pop right up. And, you know, there's kind of this pitch, not just for me, but for all Kickstarter people, that this is direct from you guys to the creator. This is you actually giving to the person who wrote the book, rather than buying it on Amazon, who buys it from Ingram, who buys it from the publisher, who buys it, and all these different things. And so, you know, this has been a game changer for me. And it's just, but I don't want to overdo it. I'll do maybe 2 a year. 2 Kickstarters a year, because I'll lower my voice because it's a secret. They're a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah, well, yeah,
a lot of work to produce it and fulfill everything and do all the spreadsheets, and so, but well worth it.
And one of the things I think is so important. So when you released the first few books that came out from Kensington and Dan Shamble, I have the mass market editions, of course, signed by you, but then there's the Wordfire Press editions with their trade paperbacks. And so when you did I think it was the Bats in the Belfry one, I just ordered them all so I could have a nice, beautiful set of the entire one, all with the same art, all like they look nicer. I'm sorry, I'm a book nerd. I need to have them on my shelf looking all the same. And that happens a lot with publishers. I remember when Kelly Armstrong, when Bitten came out, it was a hardcover. And then the next book in the series was a trade paperback. And then the next one was a mass mark. So it was like just all these different formats from the same series. Like I want them all to look the same. So that's the other thing fans can get. So fans can come up and go, ooh, I know he's got the 2 new ones that I want, but now I can get all the backlist. Right? There's going to be options for people because you're in control of what's available.
Right. Well, so we do the trade paperbacks and we do the hardcovers, but on the Kickstarter, one of the things I do is if you buy the hardcover set, all the hardcovers are autographed. That's sort of the if they're going to be kind of the artisanal level that they want the nicer one, they deserve a signed copy. So all the hardcover sets are signed.
Oh my God, signed hardcovers. It's one of the reasons you need to put in your glasses. Did you just suddenly age, my friend?
Well, this episode is running a little long, so
a little long in the tooth. Normally this episode would have been done, but no. Dear listener, dear viewer, you're in for a king-size Halloween episode. You are. You're in it. You're in the middle of a giant candy bar that you're having trouble finishing. Or are you just anticipating that next delicious bite?
Yeah, great insight on Kickstarters there.
Yeah, I really love how Kevin was. I see. I can't wear the wig for too long. It's just too warm. I don't know how you people with hair do it.
Well, mine's thinning, so I'm getting there. But I like the part that he mentioned about not wanting to bother his fans to ask them for support.
Yeah,
I think it's really important, and it's really hard to grasp the sense that your readers, they want to help you. They really
yeah,
want to help you, and if you can involve them in promoting your next release, when that book is released and it's a success, it's not just your success; it's your entire community's success, and everybody gets to
yeah.
celebrate that together, and that brings you all closer.
And they're a part of it, and they're brought into it, and they feel like connected with you. Again, we talked about that
Yeah.
much earlier on. Again, it's not begging for help. It's giving them the opportunity to be connected with you in a meaningful way, and help even bringing things to market, right? Because
Yes.
this couldn't have happened without the support. And I do know the Kickstarter, as I saw this morning, I guess at 4, it would have been 4 in the morning my time when Kevin was like leaving for the airport or whatever, that his Kickstarter was already like 300% beyond. I think he was looking for $5,000.
Oh, that's
And I think it
awesome.
was at like 16 or 18 or $19,000 in less than 24 hours. And so obviously, and that was like, I think it was only with like 310 supporters. So it was people who were just so committed. I mean, I went right in there and was like, I
Mhm.
want the 2 signed hardcovers, please, because I want to add to my collection. So because I have a bunch of them from his previous Kickstarter right there that I just made room for on my. These are all
Nice.
signed copies in the back here, and I love that. I've gotten so many amazing signed copies from authors. Actually, Julie's in the house. I'm making her sign copies of her books that are
They putting her to work.
as well. Yeah.
Wow.
But no, that connection is just so powerful and so meaningful and so
Oh, it
important.
really is.
The next thing,
He's dropping
that
gems.
what's that?
I'm sorry. I'm just saying Kevin is dropping gems left and right.
Yeah,
Down
and
here, I'm scribbling down notes.
well, when I did the interview, it went a little long, and then when we were talking about doing something special for Halloween, I thought he has so many different elements and gems, and about for good for writers, like different ways of writing and dictation and Kickstarters and
Yeah.
connecting with your fans and working with trad publishers when it's good and sometimes it's not so good, and so this is where we're going to get into. We talk about Dan Shamble again because we're still on the
Okay.
humorous zombie stories, but in this clip he talks a little bit more about the audiobook as well as another Jim. There's another way to connect directly with fans and have them be right in there with you.
Awesome. Bring on the wisdom.
Let's let her roll.
And another thing, so Kensington had done the audios for their first 4, but I couldn't hire their narrator for working stiff when I did it. So we did ACX, found a narrator, and that person did it. And then Tastes Like Chicken, the new novel that I had written, again, we just went to ACX and there was a different narrator on that one. And then the next story. So I produced these audios, but the first 4 were by one reader, and the next novel is a different one, and then there's a story collection by a different reader. But before I ran the first Kickstarter and before I did the first new Dan Shamble book, it was like 4 years because I kind of given up on the series. I just I love this, but it's not making enough money. I'm not selling enough copies.
Right.
So it had been a long enough time that by when I'm going to write the new one called Double Booked, I went, oh, I better reread all of these things. And I'm an audiobook reader. So instead of sitting there with the book to read it, it's much faster for me to just do the audio. So I listened to the first 4 that Kensington had produced. And the narrator's name was Phil Gigante, who's a big name audio reader. His books were great sense of humor and everything. And the bargain basement ACX ones weren't as good. But the part that really drove me nuts was that those narrators did not get the damn jokes. I mean, these are full of dad jokes and puns and and the narrators had no comedic timing. They didn't like do the joke and then pause a second to go wah wah. I mean, there was just, it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
And that like they like walked right through and they mispronounced things, and I just was like, yeah. And so I had the rights back for the other ones, and I thought, you know what? You know who gets every joke in this book? I do. I get every one of these jokes because I wrote them.
Yeah.
And Dan Shamble is all in first person. And so it's me. It's a stupid version of Kevin. And so I got a deal with an audiobook studio and an engineer that works with us at Superstars writing seminars every year. And I just went in and I recorded them. I've done all 9 so far. Actually, I've done 8 of the 9 because the second story collection, I'm waiting for the timer to run out on the ACX contract. There's still another,
of course,
another year or so in it.
Yeah.
And the narrator has vanished off the face of the earth. So I mean, we can't even get in touch with him to see if we can have him. Anyway, that's troubles that authors have to do. Let's see. So I recorded those, and I am going to, for Horn Dogs and Stiffs and Stones, I've already got the time booked. I'm going to go in and record them.
Wow.
And well, as I mentioned before, I don't wait until the Kickstarter's over to start writing. These books are done. They're both done, and they're both completely edited, and they're ready to go. And I could go in and record them right now, but I really can't, because one of the things that we do in the Kickstarter, I think I've got 8 or 9 slots. People can get their name in as characters in the Dan Shamble book. And so I have to wait until I find out who the names are going to be so that I can slip them as characters.
I like that.
I've got this. There's a big lava monster, fire demon, who has hired the services of our lawyer, Robin Dyer, because he wants to open a bookstore and he can't get around the fire codes because he's a lava monster and he sets everything on fire all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the cases she's working on. And in the book right now, his name is Lenny Schwartz or something like that. Well, that's going to be one of the people that's in the Kickstarter. We just don't know who it is yet. So I can't record it because I don't know the names. But
it could be Jim Azevedo from Drafted Digital, for example, if he's the lucky one who...
It could be. Well, I won't promise it'll be the lava monster, but I've got a whole list of like...
A whole list of characters like that. That's fantastic.
Characters whose names could be changed. And we'll work that in there.
Oh, my God.
So see, this is kind of a fun thing that authors do. And just on the subject of being in touch with the fans. So I have a Patreon that I started last month, and I've got a whole bunch of people that are on it. And writing the sequel to Nether Station, it's a big science fiction epic. So there's the corporate space forces, and there's the United Nations, and there's co-pilots for these ships, and everybody needs a name. And here's my list of my Patreon supporters, and I think I've so far put in 17 of their names into the book.
That's fun.
That is so cool. I need a co-pilot, and it's either unnamed co-pilot, which gets awkward after a while.
Yeah.
Or I just scroll down and go, okay, well, that sounds like a co-pilot. We'll put it in there. And
that's fun.
it's kind of my way to give back to the fans, because they're keeping the lights on. I mean, God forbid that I have to go and get like a legitimate job with a paycheck or something like that.
Love that. Hey, there's a call out to Jim in this interview here.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that name sounds familiar.
Okay, so there's something.
This is a legitimate job.
Yeah, I get a real job. It's supposed to be being a writer. Oh, come on, it's a lot of hard work, and Kevin never stops working. So I wanted to call out something he talked about, naming characters after. Putting real character names in it. I just released a story because I had a beer collaboration that came out with my latest book from a local brewery, and with it came a free short story about a haunted beer, and I used the names of the brewmaster, owner of the local bar that I haunt myself, a whole bunch of beer friends, including Kevin, that I've had beers with over the years. Dan, actually, as well. Dan Wood, the digitalist mentioned there as well. And that is known. Do you know what it's called when you do that? When you take someone's name and you stick it in TV or film or in a book?
I don't.
This is trivia time for Halloween. It's called Tuckerization. So Tuckerization, I'll read the description, is the act of using a person's name in an original story as an in-joke. It's kind of like, ha, 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 there's Jim Azevedo. He's a character in my book. I was Tuckerized by Julie Trineda a long time ago. I was a bookseller that hand-sold her books, and she had a Captain Rudy Lefebvre, who I wasn't bald at the time, but she made me bald. And she actually sent it to me and said I was going to do it as a joke just to see when you read the book. Haha, that's kind of funny. But he became the major bad guy in the book, and I wanted your permission. So she sent me the manuscript, and I still have the galleys, which are the printed proofs from the publisher, like unbound.
Yeah.
And I've kept them because I'm like, and I got her to sign them because I go, Julie, and she is a big name author now. So I was like, this is going to be worth something someday.
Yeah, with a premonition.
The term Tuckerization came from Wilson Tucker, who was a pioneering American science fiction writer, a fan, and a fanzine editor. He made it a practice of using his friends' names for minor characters in his stories. And so that's what that happens. That's what Kevin was talking about. Is Tucker. See, now we all learn something.
Learn something new every episode.
But when you Tuckerize a fan, when you Tuckerize somebody in your novel, I mean, think about how cool. That was the coolest thing when Julie put Captain Rudy Lefebvre, and then she predicted I was going to be bald one day. When she put him in the story, I was like, that was such an honor to be included.
It is, yeah.
You know, so that's something, ideas, great idea. Man, it's warm when you wear hats.
And wigs.
Yeah. And wigs as well. Any other things that jumped out from that interview with you?
Does this mean I get to be Kevin J. Anderson's co-pilot in this book?
Well, potentially, yeah. You never know.
Sweet.
you can still get in on this. Was that from Patreon that he was doing that, or yeah?
Yeah. When does that end? Did we talk about that? When does
the
his
Kickstarter or the Kickstarter just launched on the 29th earlier this week, and I think it runs for 3 weeks. So there's lots of time, even if you're not listening to this or watching this right away, to get in on it. I know I jumped right in on. Okay, I want access to the. I mean, I can get the signed hardcovers from Kevin when I see him, but I want to support a friend, and
of course,
and again, it's exciting it's exciting to be part of this and go, woohoo! I was part of this, right?
Yep.
So, awesome.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, and then it's funny. Lexi had this comment about the audiobooks. Is it definitely has a work cost, but in exchange, you get more upfront funding and reader investment.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So
true. It'll bring everybody closer together.
Yeah, and Beth says Kicksounder sounds like it has great potential, but it's a lot of work, and it is. Yeah. It's a significant amount of work. Oh, and I missed this one too. When you came back old, Guillaume was wondering what year could we possibly be in? When are these guys going to stop?
When are they going to stop? Couple more videos to share with everybody, right?
A couple more, yeah. Should I jump into the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
As if all the books you write isn't enough, you've also got a few other roles. I know there's two other things we wanted to mention. You actually help other writers through a master's program in publishing, right?
Well, so where I became a professor about 7 years ago, I think. I'm counting my things here. So Western Colorado University, because I knew some of the other instructors there, they've got their graduate program in creative writing, and they had concentrations in poetry, in screenwriting, in nature writing, and also in genre fiction, which I think says a lot, that like they have an MFA in genre fiction. So they're not like the super snooty academic artsy fartsy. They teach genre fiction as a master's degree. Mm-hmm. So I recommend you look up that if you're interested. But they came to me and said, well, they wanted to start a program in publishing for a master's degree in publishing. And did I want to be the spearhead of that? And at the time, now, Mark, you're Canadian, so you won't understand this, but writers and freelancers in the United States have a hell of a time getting health insurance. And as a university employee, I thought, well, I'll get university health insurance. And as you can see, I'm getting up in the years and I need to have medical care often. So especially when I fall and break my foot on a trail. But so I founded this master's degree program that is a very practical program because I have no patience for irrelevant esoteric stuff. So when I found it was like half traditional publishing and half indie publishing, which it might have changed since then. But at the time, we were the only ones that even understood that indie publishing existed.
Right.
Like all of the other publishing master's programs were just straight to get a job working in New York as an editorial assistant or something like that.
Right.
Well, surprise, there really aren't that many of those jobs open, and that isn't what most of the people wanted to do anyway, because they all want to be indie writers. And so I founded this. Now, I've had my own indie press since 2009, Wordfire Press. We have published 380 books by 100 and some different authors. I have worked as a graphic designer, as a tech editor, as writer. I've done all of the steps. And so we set up this whole thing so that the students in this program, they do two, in addition to the lectures and guest speakers and everything, it's a real hands-on thing. They produce an original anthology each year that they come up with the concept, and the good people at Draft to Digital give us money. They fund us $5,000 so that we can pay professional rates and open up for submissions to the wide field of freelancers. We just closed for submissions for this year's anthology, which is called Confounding Cupids, when romance goes awry. So it's sort of fantasy, romantasy, crazy romance stuff. And they write the call for submissions, and then they read the slush pile. This year we got 351 stories in across the board. We have had up to 650 submissions was the biggest one.
Wow.
And they read them, they rate them, they reject them, they write all the rejections, and then they argue over which ones they can accept, because we have a budget. It's $5,000. That's what Draft to Digital gives us, and that's all you can pay. And they always whine, oh, but I just want this extra one. I went, cool, you got to come up with the $400? I don't like it that much. So they need to work within a budget, and there's a time scale. They issue the contracts, they edit the stories, they figure out what order they go in, and that's their last assignment for the fall semester. And you might not think of this. I mean, you don't just put in stories in alphabetical order. There's a arrangement to the stories. You got to mix up the funny ones and the scary ones, and the big name authors and the unknown authors, and the really good stories, and you kind of have to hide the not so really good ones. And it's a whole process. And then they design the cover, they lay out the book, and then it gets released at this big book launch during their graduation summer. And in tandem to that, they do a solo project, which is I have them find a public domain classic that's out of copyright, like an H.G. Wells or Jules Verne, or let's see, what was that one about walking? I can't remember.
Henry David Thoreau. Yeah.
Henry David Thoreau. So there's all these classics, and then they produce every single step of the way. They do every bit of the work. They produce this fine new edition of this classic book, which also gets released when they graduate. So it's a very practical, real hands-on, and they come out of it, I think, actually knowing what they're doing. And, Mark, you've been our guest speaker, and you were so impressed you came back as a student so that you get your own degree. So
I kind of believe in the program. Yeah, it was a fantastic program. Yeah.
So it's wordfire.com is my website. We'll put up the URL, but there's a whole description there on it and some links. So if you're interested, we are open right now. We tend to fill up just about every year, and we like to fill up because that means I get enough students so I can do whatever I want and I don't have to follow red tape stuff. But I mean, we are open right now, and I would love to have some of the listeners of this podcast check it out, because and I'm not pandering, because the people who would listen to this podcast are the kinds of students that I want.
Yeah,
I
of course.
don't want somebody who has never published anything before, or who has never heard of indie publishing, or who thinks that their dream to become rich and famous is to be an editor at a university press somewhere. I mean, I want people that are open-minded and innovative. And in fact, what's coming up for this group, this is my 6th group right now. So I think I've conferred 53 master's degrees since we started. One of the things we're going to do this spring is we are going to run a class Kickstarter project to raise money for a writer's workshop.
Oh, wow,
And
that's cool.
So they're going to they're going to run a Kickstarter, and they will, I hope, not fail. But these aren't academic exercises. This is real stuff.
Yeah.
And that's, I want to pay it forward, and I want people to know what they're doing, because it's easier to live in a world where the other publishers know what they're doing.
And I thought I would wear
There's the graduate.
Western Colorado University top and my graduating cap. I had to keep it because I was so excited. But
and congratulations for putting in all the work on that, Mark.
Honestly, it's a great program. I loved it so much. This was the anthology that we did this year, Feisty Felines. But what I love about this is we Draft to Digital have been involved in helping to support these from the beginning, and of course they're using Draft to Digital to get the book distributed.
That's really cool that he's kind of given back his decades of experience back to students, and he's conferred 53 masters already. That's amazing.
And I think that's why Dan was willing to want to take the chance and sponsor something to say, okay, if we're going to help, what we do at Draft Digital is we help writers. So let's help somebody who's been in the industry for decades, who's published nearly 200 books, both traditional, self-publishing, and all the things, who's willing to give to the community. Let's support somebody who's helping to endow that next generation of just understanding the magic of what's available to us in the publishing world.
And how to go about it.
Yeah, so cool.
So what's the next thing Kevin's going to talk about here?
Yeah, this is the last clip. And Jim, I tried to do a little bit of your work, and I know you're really good at it at the end, so you may want to add it again, but I tried to add that into this video as well. But this is just a little bit about an additional project that Kevin, because he's got so many irons in the fire, but we'll play this last clip of a couple things that are in the play right now, and one of the reasons why he can't be here live.
You and I are also involved in something that I think is going to be beneficial for writers as we are ending October and are getting into what's typically the novel writing month, right? Where people try to write a novel in the whole month of November or whatever. And you're part of a story bundle where there's books for writers to help them with that process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So every year I curate one of it's called the Writing Tools Story Bundle. And you can go to storybundle.com and you'll see it right there. I just put together all kinds of helpful books on all aspects of writing, from straight on craft books to business books to career planning books to inspirational books, all different things about writers and writing. And we have 13 books in this one, plus a year's free subscription to Indie Author Magazine, which is a pretty impressive magazine if you're trying to be an indie author. And you name your own price. There's a minimum. It's like $15 or so, I don't know what it is, but there's a minimum. You name your own price. You get all these books. And this is very near and dear to my heart, and I know it is to yours too, Mark, that a portion of it goes to charity. And this year, our designated charity for the novel writing tools is the Neil Peart Brain Cancer Research Fund for Cedars-Sinai. Neil, obviously, idol of both of ours and a great friend of mine, and I just wanted that to be the place where the extra charity goes to. So the bundle will run for only like the next month, so like to the end of November.
End of November,
But it's a great deal. It's like I said, 13 books and a magazine subscription.
And which one of your one or two of your books are in that one? Is the book on dictation in there? Or?
I did the whole book on dictation, but we needed to update it because so much has changed with like AI transcription and things. And so we updated it for this bundle. You can't buy it anywhere right now. The only place you can get it is in the bundle. We'll release it like in February or March or something, but the only place you can get it right now is in here. And I think there are 2 or 3 other titles that again are exclusive to the bundle. You just
Mine
can't.
is my book on author branding is exclusive. I'm not releasing it until the spring, so that's also one of the exclusives for the bundle. So yeah,
So
wow,
and I mean these bundles are so indie authors, they put their stuff up there, and then we all a chunk goes to charity, and then we just split the rest. So this is like you supporting a bunch of indie authors that have written their wisdom on writing. Craig Martell's got one in there, wit and wisdom of the indie author, and
yeah,
I gave him a
yeah,
blurb on it. I read it, and it's kind of like one of those calendar a day where there's like this really pithy nugget every day
yeah.
you read it, and so this is like hundreds of these things. And I read through it. I meant to just skim it so I can give him a blurb, and I'm going, man, I never thought of it that way. Oh, that's really important. And that's a good reminder. Really, really good stuff. So
Fantastic. And like you
anyway,
said, so you solicit these from authors, they put them together, they're part of the story bundle, and then after the bundle's over, what we can do is we can then go to Draft to Digital and then publish them, or to whatever other platforms people want to publish their books on, sell them direct, etc. So you can have it all as an author.
right. So to kind of wrap up, we talked about so many things. So I just want to, so my big Nether Station just came
Yep.
out 2
Yep.
days ago. My Kickstarter just launched 2 days ago. Tuesday was a busy day, I can tell you that. My master's degree program is open, and again, this is very intensive. Everybody loves it. I mean, you spend a whole lot of all year with me and a couple other professors teaching you about indie publishing. And we have the story bundle going on with all the writing tools in it. So
Wow, awesome. And of course, as this is airing, you're already going to be overseas at the next in-person event that
well,
you're
I will be in Ghent, Belgium for their Comic-Con over this coming weekend. So
awesome. So
and
if you're watching this from Belgium, go check out where Kevin is today or this week as well. Kevin, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you online? What's the website where they can find you online?
well, again, wordfireshop.com is my whole place where you can buy direct all of my books. They're all autographed, and there's tons of stuff on there. And you can find me, Kevin J. Anderson, on Facebook, and
Awesome.
Twitter. X is the KJA. It's all go to wordfire.com. That's my website. It has links to all the other social media there. But again, I strongly encourage you, if you want another station, you can buy it direct from me, unless you want the audiobook or the ebook, that you get that wherever you get those.
Yeah.
And the Kickstarter, please go to kickstarter.com and look up my name, because that's how we make a living, by doing these projects and producing them ourselves.
Well, Kevin, thanks for hanging out with me for this extra special bonus treat Halloween episode, to go in a little bit longer than normal than the regular episodes.
Well,
and
I want to promise, though, that when I'm in Belgium, Mark, on your behalf, I will have an extra Belgian beer just for you.
I really do appreciate that. Thank you. And I hope I get to see a picture of you enjoying this Belgian beer. So excellent. And again, I'm sure I'll see you at Superstars Writing Seminars in February of 2025 as well. But I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank you, dear listener, for watching. I want to remind you not to miss out every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I get to talk to wonderful people like Kevin. It's either myself or Jim or one of our other amazing hosts from the Draft Digital team. Like, comment, subscribe, so you don't miss out. You can check us out every single week. You can go back to the backlist. We just celebrated our 200th episode. And if you have not yet begun your publishing journey, you can create a free account and publish and take advantage of all of our free tools for ebooks, for print books, and even a link to an audiobook partner over at draftdigital.com. Thank you so much for watching. And Kevin, thanks again for hanging out with me today, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
I have to tell you this, Jim. This is so cool. So meta. During our broadcast, Kevin's in Belgium. He landed in Belgium, and he sent me a picture. He said, he's like, okay, I'm having a beer for you.
Of course.
So, and he says he wants to, I said, Jim and I are live right now sharing the interview. And he says, make sure you wish everyone at Draft to Digital and all the authors who are watching, wish them a very happy Halloween.
Well, he has such an amazing career.
It's
And he's
truly
best friends with Neil Peart. So it's like, oh.
I know,
Gee.
I know. Yeah, I love the fact that that story bundle is going to a good cause, and again, both
Absolutely.
Kevin and I got a little verklempt when
Oh,
he
for
mentioned
sure.
when he mentioned Neil, and
Yep.
and I've got to stop talking now, so I
Yeah.
can catch my breath.
I get it. Well, thanks for getting Kevin involved, and thanks for all the work that you put into this episode. It was a good one.
Well, I think, come on, it's Halloween. We needed to give them a little bit of an extra treat, like that double-sized candy bar, right?
Yeah, and lots of gems in there, lots of pearls of wisdom from Kevin. So, like I said, like I've got pages of notes that I was writing
Yeah.
down.
Same here as well. And so again, we have a special closer again, since it is Halloween. We had a special opener. We may as well have a special closer. See, Jim, I did that job you do where you talk about all the things at the end with the pop-ups.
It was like automated. I'm like, oh, sweet. I
It's
just
like, hey, I don't need to do this. This is like a day off. So cool.
I'm just gonna kick back here in age a little bit and be good.
But Jim, thanks for joining me. I mean, it's always great to hang out with you. And even though we're not together, it was fun to hang out with you this Halloween. It was fun to hang out with you guys. Thank you guys so much for all the wonderful comments.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Mark. I hope to see you at a conference someday soon. And to all of our viewers, thanks for hanging out together this week, and we'll see you again next week. Take us
All
off,
the
Mark.
extra work required of authors today can be so frustrating, but make no bones about it. Draft Digital is here, and we've got your back. From our free Word to EPUB conversion tool with dozens of templates to give your book that pro designer look and feel, to our click of a button front and end matter, to the automated full cover wrap we offer when you're wanting to format your print book. These are just some of dozens of free resources we built for you. Because it's important for us to remove the barriers that get under your skin and prevent you from getting back to writing and publishing your books.